What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 144.
144.
On this Monday, January 13th, 2025. Josh Callaway, James E. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Monday. We're continuing our position status report series today. We did quarterbacks last week. We're going to do running backs today on the program. We have a couple other football headlines we want to hit. We'll also, of course, recap the latest action for basketball. As things a bit wobbly for the men, women a little bit up and down. We'll recap the latest on the hardwood as well on this Monday edition of the Sooners Illustrated Podcast. First show in about 5 days because Colin and I did the show early last week on Wednesday. So I feel like it's been a while. Shake the rust off, and we'll dive into some of the latest stuff here with OU football and basketball. But, gentlemen, let's start with football as per usual. Let's do the position status report first. So we started this last week. If you were with us then, we did quarterbacks off the top. We also did this last, winter, essentially. We kind of run through the roster, take each position, and kind of give a little check-in, a little temperature check on that spot where it was last year going into next year, that sort of thing. So we did quarterbacks. Let's do running backs today, guys. DeMarco Murray's position. This is the weirdest position I think that we're going to have, really, of all of these that we do, because as of now, and this is fluid. It could change. There's the post-spring window. There's still this time period before spring ball. Nothing's changed. It's the exact same group. Nobody's left.
Well, Caleb Hicks.
What's that?
Caleb Hicks left.
That's true. I forgot about Caleb Hicks. Of those guys who played, of the guys who played,
yeah.
The main names are the same, which is interesting because normally you expect some fluidity, and like I said, there could still be more movement. There's still time. There's still a long time till September. But, guys, where do you kind of sit with this position? Obviously, Javonte Barnes had a nice year. Taylor Tatum, as a true freshman, had some nice moments, also had some growing pains. Obviously, Xavier Robinson came on late. It was essentially a lost year for Gavin Sawchuk. He got some run in the bowl game, but other than that, kind of just was really not a factor for the majority of the season. Sam Franklin kind of spot duty here and there. Where do you guys kind of make of this running back room after the year it had and kind of where it's at moving forward? It feels like it's in kind of a weird place.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel kind of perplexed by the running back room. Like, I like a lot of the talent they have in that room, but I've liked that talent for, 3 off seasons now. I just don't know what it's going to look like. Is Javonte Barnes going to be able to stay healthy like he did most of this year? Is, up until that sprained ankle really, is Gavin Sawchuk going to be able to stay healthy, which, has been an issue for him because we've seen how good he can be when he's healthy. We've seen how hard Javonte Barnes runs when he's healthy and given the shot. I really like what we saw late in the season from Xavier Robinson, but again, like when he started getting going, they kind of went away from him. Mm-hmm. Taylor Tatum's probably the most talented back in that room, but he couldn't hold on to the football this season. So there's things to like about each of the pieces, but I'm still kind of unsure on how I feel about the room as a collective right now, especially because, we don't know how, what the pecking order is and, what it's going to be on a game-to-game basis, it almost seems like sometimes. And I know some of that is because of injuries and guys not being available, but it's very hard to get a feel for this room because of just the way the season unfolded and how, these guys were kind of doled out in different spots.
Mm-hmm. And DeMarco Murray kind of told us about it. I mean, he said he wanted a workhorse running back to go into the season. Now, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, because as Tom just said, a lot of these guys have really good strengths and then some weaknesses that kind of make them not the prototypical guy just to go with every down and things like that. So you're going to see a collection of the group pretty much throughout the entire season. I think that's what it's going to be. Javonte Barnes is a guy that's kind of like Xavier Robinson. Like Xavier Robinson is kind of like a guy that can run between the tackles and force his way through. But then you got guys like Gavin Sawchuk who are really good at catching the ball, out of the backfield. Taylor Tatum could be a guy like that. And that's something that Sam Franklin obviously isn't the best at, catching the football outside of the backfield. So he's more of like a get the pitch and things like that. So there's different aspects of this team. And then you got guys like Torrey Blaylock coming in who, we don't really know how it's going to pan out, but there's a guy like that has that type of speed. That's something that you want to collect and see. So there's, like you guys said, it's a little weird here and there, but at least we know kind of what's going to be there. We kind of know what this offense and what these running backs can do in this offense.
Yeah, Tom put it well. Perplexing, I think, is the right word, because, talent-wise, you look at it and you love it. And DeMarco Murray's in a weird place, too, because, he clearly can recruit. He's landed many top guys. Taylor Tatum was obviously the big fish of the last cycle. he's done a great job getting talent to the room. That has not been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Development, there's a couple of nice success stories. There's been some kind of you wonder where that's kind of been under DeMarco, but the questions primarily seem to lie in just kind of what's the plan with the position. Like, it feels like that was again an issue this year, just like it was in 23, which we talked about. Remember last offseason, Tawi Walker, that whole thing of he didn't really know what his workload was going to be like on a game to game. I feel like that kind of was the case again. I mean, Javonte Barnes was pretty consistently the guy, but Gavin Sawchuk just completely being a non-factor throughout the year was weird. And then, like Tom said, Xavier Robinson does some nice things late, but then they just don't really use him in the bowl game. Like, it feels like there's always a weird allotment of touches and carries at that room in particular. Like, I feel like we're left questioning what the plan was or why they did what they did with that position, maybe more than the other one when it comes to snap counts and that sort of thing. So they got to figure that out. They got to find a way to get a better plan. I don't know if it's ride the hot hand or what. I don't know if it's matchup based. We really don't know anything about what goes into why they decide to do what they do at that position. And that's a problem because it's underperformed at times. And obviously at running back, you're at the mercy of your offensive line play a lot of the time, which offensive line was not great this year, so it's a weird position because the talent is there and you're bringing everyone back essentially. So you should feel great about it, but I don't think any of us do. I think you feel okay about it, but I don't know if you feel great about it. So that the next part we usually wrap up. Better, same, worse. It's basically the same group at the top. So I guess same is completely reasonable to say for this position as much as any other. Where are you guys at relative to what you had this year going into next year? You're more confident in the group, the same, or less confident? Where are you kind of at on that perspective of the position is going to be a strength next year, or just kind of more the same?
I think I'm a little bit more confident because we've seen what Xavier Robinson can do. We've seen what Taylor Tatum is, what kind of plays he's capable of making. I think if he can get the ball security issues, kind of firmed up, you feel a lot better about him. And again, a lot of this all just depends on health. Like that Javonte Barnes ankle injury, really cost him, pretty much the final few weeks of the season. Gavin Sawchuk, that quad injury just was an issue for a whole lot of the year. It's tough to deal with, but assuming the health is there, I think you feel at least a little bit better about this room going into 2025.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat because we kind of saw some good things from younger players that are going to get a lot of shine next season, like Xavier Robinson and things like that. You have confidence that if he's in the game, you'll be all right. If Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk can't go, so that's kind of where I'm at as well. And I think as you said, Josh, it's going to be a game by game situation for this group. I think that's what it is. Like I said, they all have different strengths and weaknesses, and that can play. It could do really well for them if they have that type of production in a certain spot. In a certain spot, you come in and do this, you come in and do that. And as long as they put the right guys in at the right times, they'll be just fine. Like, you don't really want to have, Sam Franklin having to come in there and try to catch a swing pass because that's not really his game at this point in time that we've seen. He's had those drops. So you want to put the right guys at the right time. And if you do that, this running back group could have a really good season.
Could be interesting to see how the running back spot is utilized. Obviously Ben Arbuckle coming in, running the show. Can the run game be another strength of this offense next year? That's going to be a question mark. And it's an interesting position, to say the least. And we'll see if there's any movement here. Like Tom said, Caleb Hicks has moved on to Oklahoma State, but he never could get on the field last year. So of the guys who contributed, they're all back as of now. A lot of time before September, but it's an interesting position, to say the least. No need to add anyone in the portal because, like I just said, everyone's back. So it's kind of just a little bit static at the moment, which could be a good thing or not. We'll find out soon enough. Elsewhere on the football front, a couple other headlines want to hit before we do some basketball recap from the last week in SEC play. They did make another transfer pickup last week. John Locke, Louisiana Tech tight end. This is a guy that, if you're a VIP subscriber, Colin Kendi brought to the table as a potential possibility. So John Locke comes in. He's the third tight end of the cycle that Joe John Finley's brought in. Of course, Carson Kent from Kennesaw State, and then Will Huggins from Pittsburgh State, who we've talked about previously on the show. Kind of the same deal here as far as, not a lot of production. Just had, I think, one catch last year, two catches the year before for Louisiana Tech in the passing game. So you're still, I think, kind of left wondering who's going to shoulder the load in the passing game at the tight end spot. What do you guys make of this pickup and just kind of, again, the tight end room in general? It feels like we're still left kind of wondering, or one of these guys going to jump up and surprise? Are they putting all the eggs in the Devon Mitchell basket? This position continues to be a bit of an enigma for Oklahoma going into next year.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me about the John Locke pickup is, his blocking ability. I think he was a really solid pass blocker this past season at Louisiana Tech. Again, wasn't really utilized much in the passing game. 1 catch on 2 targets, just 2 yards. But he's an upgrade from a pass blocking standpoint over what they had in Bauer Sharp and Jake Roberts, who, Bauer Sharp in particular really struggled in pass blocking. Jake Roberts still not great, but better than Bauer Sharp was. So I think it's an upgrade from that standpoint. And again, I'm just kind of interested to see what this room kind of looks like because, beyond, a Caden Helms and a Devon Mitchell, like not sure what they have in terms of a pass catcher in that room. So that'll be something to kind of monitor over the next, 8-9 months heading into the season. But I think at least from a pass blocking perspective, I think it's a nice pickup in that regard.
Yeah, when you saw the stats, 1 catch for 2 yards this past season, you kind of like, what in the world? But then like you see like his film and things like that. Pass blocking is what he's brought in to do. I think that's exactly what it is, and it's good that Oklahoma was able to convince him as a 3-star to come in as a walk-on as well. So you don't really have to give up your scholarship and things like that to get a guy like that 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 can help you out. And helps in trying to block those defensive ends that the SEC can really bring at you. So I think that was a plus for his addition and things like that. But that's what you really want to watch out for with this guy. It's more like a pass blocking and not necessarily a pass catcher, which it looks like there's a few of those in the tight end room at this point in time. So maybe there's some more movement coming. I don't know.
Yeah, at the risk of stepping on the toes of our tight end stats report, which we'll do obviously in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. Does anyone want to take a venture of a guess on who tight end 1 is on this team next year? Who's the starting tight end in week 1? You could talk me into like 5 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask me right now, it's either Caden Helms, assuming he's healthy, Devon Mitchell, or Carson Kent.
Yeah, I would like it to be Devon Mitchell, but we didn't even get to see him in the bowl game. Like
that's a big jump.
Yeah, you think he would get to play there if you're expecting him to be the guy next year, and we didn't see that. So maybe it's probably most likely Caden Helms. Then, as you said, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Same thought. I mean, in a perfect world, Devon Mitchell would be that guy, but you're going to go from not being able to get snaps in a bowl game to being the starter. That's a lot in one offseason. Could it happen? Sure. And we'll talk about more in the tight end stats board. Cade McIntyre floating around as well. I mean, it's a weird position right now. It just is. And we'll talk about it more when we do the stats report. But pick up here with John Locke. We'll see how he fits into the mix in the spring and going into next year, obviously. Elsewhere, another headline here, kind of in the same vein of Kendall Dolby. We talked about him last week, announced his return. Gracen Halton announced he's going to be back for next year. Not a surprise here. I mean, everyone kind of expected Gracen Halton to be back. But still, as always, it's nice to get the official word. He is the final piece, really, because we talked about it with Colin last week. Our Mason Thomas announced his return last week. And so when you loop him in with Gracen Halton, with Dominic Williams, with Robert Spears-Jennings, with Kendall Dolby, it's like Kip Lewis. Everyone on this defense, essentially, that could be back is back. What do you guys make of this? I mean, this is just, again, a great offseason for Oklahoma on the defensive retention standpoint. I mean, all these guys coming back, it's got to get you pretty excited about what you can be defensively, moving into 2025.
Yeah, I think Gracen Halton return. Again, it wasn't surprising, but I think it's like a sneaky important decision for him to come back. Because he was just so effective as a pass rusher from the interior, and that is one of the hardest things to get in football is a solid pass rush disruptor from the interior of that defensive line. He had career highs in tackles for loss, sacks. He was second on the team in sacks this season, second in total pressures, both behind our Mason Thomas. Even though he only started a few games this year, he was second among defensive tackles in snaps. Only Dominic Williams played more than he did. So he was a very vital part of that rotation. And he was one of the most effective interior pass rushers in all of college football last season. I think he was like 13th in terms of his pass rush grade, 12th nationally in terms of his pass rush win rate. Third in the SEC. A couple guys were ahead of him, but I mean, being able to bring back a guy who can create that kind of disruption from the interior of the defensive line is huge for this defense.
Guys, I love what Oklahoma's doing on the defensive line right now. As you talked about the retention, this is going to be a very strong position group just overall. We were talking about the running backs just earlier about how all of their, all of the same guys are coming back. It's almost similar with the defensive line. Obviously, you're going to replace like Trace Ford and eat the downs, but they've made some steps to really bring in new guys for that position. And with bringing in all these defensive tackles back, it's a really good situation to be in, especially in SEC, which we know is a battle of the line of scrimmage. And so Gracen Halton announcing his comeback, which is what we kind of expected anyway, it's still a very good boost of morale, just for that group, maybe for the fans and things like that. I really like what OU's done on that front there. It's really good right now.
I agree. Gracen Halton had a great year. Last year was kind of one of the breakout guys. I mean, he was really quite solid all season long. And yeah, the defensive line is in great shape. I mean, it's got a chance to be one of the better ones in the SEC and the country, at the same time. I mean, it's a group that you feel really good about. Obviously, added Marvin Jones into the mix. We'll see if they can still add a D tackle. That's been kind of a plan. Mm-hmm. They've missed on a couple of guys that they were maybe, in the contention for in that D tackle room, but you still have the post-spring portal window. But even if you don't, I mean, you're in great shape with what you're bringing back. It's a lot to be excited about defensively. And I think it also makes you feel good as just an OU fan in general to see that enough of these guys still have got a belief in the way things are moving. You know what I mean? Because it last year was rough and all the turmoil and Zach Alley leaves. And it's just kind of like, it felt like the sky was kind of falling for a little while. To get all these guys back is kind of a feeling of, okay, these guys all still feel confident and comfortable coming back another year under Brent Venables in this defensive staff, even though they don't know who the DC is going to be. Like, it kind of just makes you feel a little better about the vibes around the program in a lot of ways. All these guys choosing to come back. So that's good to say the least. And again, really good defensive line, like James was saying. Very excited about that group moving into next year. Still waiting on the defensive coordinator as well. We're continuing to monitor that situation. It's bled out longer than I think anyone thought it would, which makes it a little more impressive. Oklahoma's done what they've done on the defensive side from retention and the couple additions they've made in the portal without having a DC. We're all over it. Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma247sports.com. Whenever that becomes a thing, you will know. And we're monitoring. We're monitoring to say the least. A lot of rumors and names flying around right now, but we're ready for whatever it may be. Let's shift over to do some basketball before we get out of here. Let's start with the men. Tom, it's not been great, obviously. When we were at the Lenoble Center last Wednesday for the Texas A&M game, I had the thought whenever they blew that 18-point lead to lose that, we don't do instant reaction shows for basketball games. And that's probably a good thing because I think if we had done one on Wednesday night, I probably would have said some reckless things because that was a horrible loss. Awful. 18-point lead at home. They get Texas A&M, who's missing their best player. Really, really ugly game and lost. They turned around and went to Georgia, which nobody felt great about, going on the road to Athens. Had a lead at halftime again, but again, didn't play well down the stretch. They're 0-3 in SEC play. I'll ask you the same thing I asked you last week. Panic button, are you smashing it? Are you still waiting? Where are you kind of at? I mean, it's still early. I mean, from a literal standpoint, they've got plenty of time. They would be a tournament team right now this season. So obviously they've got loads of time to get it back on track, but it's hard not to just feel like we're seeing the same, problems arising again. Where are you at with this team right now after a couple of ugly losses and desperate for some wins coming up here soon?
Yeah, the level of concern is rising right now. That was a tough week. Going into the week, I think Oklahoma was 9-0 in games this season in which it led at halftime. And then it blew two halftime leads. Mm-hmm. Obviously, 9-point halftime lead that turned into an 18-point lead with 60 minutes left, and then you lose by 2 at home. A chance, which was another chance for a really good, quad 1 win for your resume. And then you go on the road, you kind of battle back after a slow start, lead by 3 at halftime to Georgia, and then just put together your worst second half of basketball this season. Only scored 26 points. Had season lows in shooting percentages both from the field and from beyond the arc. The free throw disparity was off the charts, just unreal. And in SEC play, Oklahoma struggled to get to the free throw line while opponents have been just parading to the line at this point, it seems like. So the level of concern is definitely rising. I think this is a potentially make or break week for this team because, there's 5 teams in the SEC right now that are 0-3, and Oklahoma is about to host 2 of them at home in back-to-back games. Texas on Wednesday night, South Carolina on Saturday. These are essentially must-win games that'll pretty much dictate the course of the rest of the season. The thing that's really been concerning to me is the play of Jeremiah Fears in SEC play. He was stellar throughout non-conference play. He's a big reason why Oklahoma was where they were heading into SEC play, but he has struggled the last 3 games. Alabama came at him really physically. Texas A&M did a really good job of just trying to get the ball out of his hands and not letting him make plays. And Georgia, he just struggled. Another tough shooting night. I believe he had 1 basket in the first half, and that tied the game at 19. And then that was his only basket of the game, only points of the game. His first shot of the second half, I think, didn't come until there was 8 minutes left in the game. And then he missed a 3-pointer after that, and then had 2 runners at the rim, both swatted away. And Oklahoma had 8 shots blocked, tied for a season high. And look, if Jeremiah Fears is not going to play like the first round pick that a lot of people were projecting him to be, as recently as a week or 2 ago, then this season is going to kind of go off the rails pretty quickly for Oklahoma, because you're essentially playing, without one of your best players these last 3 games. He's not played like that. He's looked more like a high school senior. I still think he's immensely talented, but he needs to figure out how to adjust to this league.
Does it seem like other teams just have more film on him now, and they're coming at him defensively in different ways that he saw earlier when you didn't have any film on him? Is that kind of the situation for him right now?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily all film. It's just I think the SEC is a lot more physical than what Oklahoma was going through in non-conference play. And don't get me wrong, Oklahoma played a few good teams in non-conference play, and he played great against pretty much all
Michigan
of them. Yeah, Michigan in particular, obviously. But these teams are I think they're honing in on him more because they realize that he is the catalyst of what makes this Oklahoma offense good. And if you're taking him out of there, you're forcing some of these other guys to make plays, and you're making him a non-factor. And essentially any team, if you make their best player a non-factor, you're probably going to win.
Yeah.
But if he can't get going, it's a serious issue for Oklahoma, because you can't have games like that Texas A&M game where Bryson Goodine has a all-world shooting performance and you squander that. Dude made 9 out of 11 3-pointers and you lose that game. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, Bryson Goodine, I never seen anything like that off the bench. 34 points off the bench, insane. And then to lose when you get 34 points from one bench guy is, as Porter Moser said himself, hard to do.
After the bench scored 5 points in the loss to Alabama, he scores 34 by himself. Yeah.
Well, there was a free throw disparity, right? And in that,
I was going to say, Tom brought it up. It was 37-9. Georgia shot free throws to Oklahoma. It's 80. I have the number 89-42 in SEC play. That is horrible. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's Oklahoma's getting a tough whistle, if that's they stink on defense, so they're fouling guys. They're not being aggressive enough. Getting to the line, I mean, it could be a lot of things. Probably it's a combination of a lot of things. That's got to change. You can't get doubled up on free throws. And in the Georgia game's case, triple. What is that? I'm doing bad math here. 4 times, quadrupled up in free throws. You're not going to win games on the road with that sort of free throw disparity. The rebounding hasn't been great, which was a feared issue going in. They've been out rebounded in all 3 games so far. And like Tom said, Jeremiah Fears was their best player in the 13-0 start. Best player. And he's not playing well. It reminds me a lot of the Trae Young season on a smaller scale, but it was similar in that Trae Young was unbelievable. And OU got in the top 5 in the AP poll. And then other teams basically decided, we're not going to let that guy beat us. And he started to press. He didn't play well. And the other guys couldn't win games on their own, basically, without him. And that team just spiraled. And they end up making the tournament still, getting knocked out in the first round. But, on a lesser scale, it feels like kind of the same thing. Like it's a hotshot freshman who was making it all happen. And these SEC teams have basically decided, like Tom said, we're not going to let him go off, and we're going to see if the other guys can beat us, and they haven't been able to. So I don't know. It's worrisome. I'm hitting the panic button. Wednesday night is program defining, basically. Any shot you have to turn this around, Wednesday night at home, Texas, who's not playing that well, they're 0-3 also, have to win that game. Have to. You can still turn it around. There's plenty of time, but that is a gut check moment of a game. And I know some people say that's overstated, program defining. This season is program. Like, this is it. This era of OU basketball is on this year. Like Porter Moser, everyone knows. Okay, they got to make the tournament. Wednesday is huge, and Tom and I will be there. 9 p.m. tip, latest tip in the history of OU basketball. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm guessing. That is crazy. Home game at 9 p.m. Probably be like 100 people there, but Tom and I will be in the 100, and we'll see. It's going to be interesting to say the least. Big game on Wednesday. Big game. Because like Tom said, next 4 or 5 games are all relatively manageable by SEC standards. So you got to win some games here coming up. Got to. Let's flip over to the women. James, weird start for them to SEC play because it's been good at times and not so good at other times. They've been up and down. So 2-2 in their first 4 SEC games. Not a great loss. Mississippi State in Starkville earlier in the week, last week. Mississippi State's first 2 SEC games, they got beat pretty handily. OU lost a game, a lot of turnovers. Bounced back yesterday, though, and played well. You were there. Pretty comfortable win, led wire to wire over Texas A&M. Where are you kind of at with this team right now? They're down to 13 in the AP poll. You know, it's like I said, it's been kind of up and down. The Texas game, they had a chance to win it, but turned it over too much and lost. Great road win, but almost blew the lead. It's like every game, even within the games, it's like great stretches followed by some poor stretches. Where are you kind of at with this team right now, 4 games into SEC play?
It's kind of weird because honestly, they probably should be undefeated in SEC play. The issue they have is, as you've mentioned, is the turnovers. The turnovers keep coming up, and they're racking up about 20 turnovers each game in the SEC.
Crazy.
And that is something that's just any team can't really come back from. It's a lot of difficulty doing that. That's why Tennessee almost came back and beat OU. The good thing is that their assist numbers are so well that oftentimes that's overcoming all those turnovers. And that's been the biggest thing. That's like the biggest story of this season for them is their turnover issues. And because of the way they play offense, I'm not really sure how much better it will get because it relies a lot on each player knowing what the other player is thinking before they pass the ball, because they're a free-flowing offense. That's pretty much what they do. And when they do it successfully, it looks like the best basketball you've ever seen. Like we're talking about San Antonio Spurs back in that 2013, 2011 run, things like that. Like that was a really good, run for them. So that's pretty much what it is. Now, the scary part that happened, on Sunday was Reagan Beers going down with an injury. And you don't really know the severity. We don't really know the severity of that just yet. But I will say I did see Reagan Beers after the game. Shoulder was wrapped, her left shoulder. She was talking with fans, smiling, laughing. So I'm hoping that's a positive sign in terms of it is not as serious as maybe it looked at the time, because she sat the rest of the game and after that third quarter injury and didn't come back to the bench until the fourth quarter. So it was we didn't really know what was going to happen there. So I'm going to go off of just the way she reacted afterwards. It's going to be okay for them.
Yeah, you read my mind. The tension is there. Yeah, on Reagan Beers, also that injury. Hard to know yesterday, too, because they were winning so comfortably, so you can't really read into that. Like, she didn't return to the game. Maybe if it was close, she would have tried. Hard to know because they didn't need her to.
Well, it was wrapped pretty severely. Like it was like pretty much stuck to her body at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know maybe it took a lot of caution with it, but it was no reason for her to come back out. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So we'll see. And they don't play again until Thursday. They play Missouri on Thursday night at home. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. That's going to be a big question mark going into that game. But they've done some good things. Like you said, they could easily be 4-0. I mean, the way Texas turned around and just blasted Alabama. I don't remember what the final score into that, but they beat Alabama by like 50 or something. Mm-hmm. Made you feel a little better about them playing Texas so close despite the turnovers. But yeah, they got to find a way to clean it up. I mean, against Mississippi State, they had the ball down too late. Didn't get a shot off because they turned it over, So you just that's been their Achilles heel by far so far. Mm-hmm. So got to find a way to clean that up as the games get tougher. They got South Carolina coming up, which is obviously a behemoth. So we'll see, but encouraging sign so far. And like we've talked about before, for those who don't keep up with women's basketball on a year-to-year, aren't familiar with it, the top 4 seeds get home games in the NCAA tournament. So the regular season is even more important in women's basketball than the men because you want those home games. That's a huge difference to be a top 4 seed. So these games matter in the women, and even more in the women's game because you want that top 4 seed. So got to find a way to clean it up and keep getting these wins that you need to get, like Thursday against Missouri at home. That's another one you need to get at home. I think that's it. Appreciate everyone tuning in as always. Winter workout started today for football as well. So we have that going on. We're kind of getting back into it. The team's back together. So we'll have some winter workout stuff over the next couple of months before spring ball. They're in the middle of March. But we'll keep up with a lot of basketball coverage, and we'll be back later in the week with Colin to recap the latest in the portal. Defensive coordinator search. It's felt like it's been winding down for like 2 weeks. So I don't know if it's really been winding down. Got to imagine a resolution comes there soon. And we'll be sure to talk about it and give you all the coverage whenever that is the case. But until then, we're back on Thursday with Colin, hit the portal and everything else recruiting side after his week in San Antonio later this week. So I think that's it. Appreciate you guys as always. Tom Green, James D. Jackson. I'm Josh Callaway signing off for now. We'll see you next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.